I'm out walking a tract I have listed here in western North Carolina. It's 40 acres, a half mile from the interstate. And a few things that happened before that we listed this property that the seller did were extremely helpful in making it a great listing. And I'm also going to discuss what made this tract appealing to commercial buyers. So, my name is Jon Galbreath, Higher Ground Properties in western North Carolina. My information's in the description if you want to reach out to me for anything real estate related. Now, when I first spoke with the seller about this property, he had told me that he had gotten a brand new survey. And I said, that's a great thing. What that does is having a new survey, you can put it in the buyer's hands and they can see the exact acreage of the property. The corners and the lines are marked. They can go out on the property and see the exact boundaries. And that's just, it gives the buyer a great experience. It prevents any misunderstandings down the road later on in the deal about the size of the property, things like that. So it's just always a good idea if you haven't gotten it's been 10 or more years since you've gotten a survey. Sometimes things change. You go out there, get a survey, get those lines freshly marked, and give your buyer a great experience. It really helps work towards a deal. I have had people that have come out and looked at land before, and you're like, I don't know about this. We don't want to pay for a survey. We don't want to go through that. It's going to take too long, or whatever the reason is. So it's always a good idea for a seller to be prepared with a survey. Now, when it came to pricing, we were discussing, what the seller wanted to list the property for. Again, I was really happy to hear that they wanted to be reasonable with the price. They didn't want to overprice it, didn't want to underprice it. They wanted to be right there in that sweet spot to attract buyers. There's nothing attractive about an overpriced property. So, we discussed, we researched, and we determined a good price point to list. And we attracted some buyers in here. We had a couple of national developers come in here. One sent over an offer, and it wasn't exactly agreeable to my seller, so we ended up the terms of the contract, so we didn't go under contract with them. Now, we did have another commercial entity come in here, and they said this is the perfect property for us, and so they sent us over a letter of intent. So a letter of intent, otherwise known as an LOI in commercial real estate, is it's kind of an entryway into negotiations. Whereas it's not a legally binding contract, and they'll have things in there like the purchase price, how much money they want to put down, the length of time until closing, and some other terms. And so you just make an agreement, and you give them some time to do some preliminary due diligence. They're going to reach out to the city, the county. They're going to take a look at the infrastructure and see if the property is going to be good for them. And then when they're comfortable and they want to move forward, they'll send over a contract, and we'll go under a legal agreement. Now, what made this property attractive to commercial buyers? Well, being a half a mile from the interstate, a 40-acre tract, and being surrounded by paved roads with great access, and also being surrounded by city water, city sewer, and natural gas lines. That is huge. So that infrastructure is in place, and it can be run onto this property very easily. And so that's a thing that made it attractive to commercial buyers. Now, I was talking to the seller, and 20 or so years ago, when Walmart was looking to build their new super Walmart in this town, this property was a contender for that super Walmart. Now, they did end up building a few exits down at another location, but this property was in the running for that. So it's going to be I'm really looking forward to working this deal. I've enjoyed working with my sellers. When they got the survey and then they wanted to price the property right. Those two things are huge for land sales. So if you want to sell your land, be thinking about those things, and just be thinking about the property that you have. Is it worth what you want? Look at reality. Get appraisals. You can get multiple realtor opinions, and you can put all those numbers together and determine what you want to list your property before. But I really do appreciate you watching. My name is Jon Galbreath, Higher Ground Properties in Western North Carolina. Reach out to me anytime.